This month, our webinar is going to be discussing a lot of things regarding inspections. And we have two wonderful presenters today. Our agency inspector, Mickey Forsyth, will be presenting two different presentations about inspections. And Lynn Symington will also be presenting a piece of the inspection process. So we're going to start out with top 10 HQS fail items that our inspector Mickey sees when she's out there doing all kinds of inspections across the state, followed by Lynn, who will be discussing the failed inspection and abatement process and how we have to manage that. And then finally, at the end, Mickey is going to give us an overview of what's to come, a new inspection module, model, process, whatever you want to call it, that the final rule just came out about, Inspire. We're going to share with you what we know so far. And that is our webinar. We do not have chat. We have the Q&A function. So please go ahead if you have questions throughout the presentation to use the Q&A function. And your questions will be answered there. And if they can't be answered there, we will wait for a break in between the presentations to see if we can get an answer from our presenters. With that, I'm going to go on mute. And Mickey, do you want to start us off?
I do. I wanted to share the top 10 that I'm seeing that are failing, and that I'm getting questions.
Mickey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm having a hard time hearing you. You sound a little muffled.
Is that one better?
Oh, that's way better.
Okay. So I wanted to share the top 10 fail items that I am seeing. And also, these are also things that I'm getting a lot of questions about when people, write or call asking for a little guidance. So the first item on the list, hang on just a second, is housekeeping. Number 10 is housekeeping. What do we consider hoarding? And this is actually a pretty common question I'm getting from a lot of people lately. And I'm seeing it in not as many as I was right after COVID, but I'm still seeing a lot of people who are big collectors of items. We want to make sure that windows have a clear path, that stuff is organized. But if they can clean up the room, if a reasonably healthy person could clean up the room in about a couple of hours, then it is not a fail. If it's something that is, there's no way this could be cleaned up in a couple of hours, then yes, we do need to go ahead and fail it, and we fail that under garbage and debris. Or under health and safety, if it is preventing people from getting to their, their windows, or if they've got stuff piled up around their water heaters and so on. Number 9, deadbolts, doorknobs, and doors. I'm seeing a lot of kicked in doors where they have just screwed the pieces of wood back together. And that's not an acceptable fix, because that's an easy thing to re-break out. Also, the switch plates on the strike plates right here, and I can put that into a draw. The strike plate that goes right there on the door, that needs to be in place where the latch goes into the door. That reinforces the area and keeps somebody from being able to pop the door open. Deadbolts can't be double keyed, and that includes on those security doors. I'm seeing, and it's weird, I've never seen this before, but this last year I've seen a lot of abandoned doorknobs, and then they've just put a doorknob up in the deadbolt area to replace it. And they still leave the broken doorknob and just take the latch out. of the door. And that's not acceptable either. If it's there, it's got to work properly. And if they're going to remove it, then they need to remove the whole thing and put the proper caps over the holes. There is a cap system for, when you don't have a deadbolt, there's a plate that can be put on either side of the door that screws together, that prevents that hole from having air come through the door. And the hole can't just be left either. And, whoops, looks like I need to erase. Sorry, guys. Number 8 would be infestation. What constitutes an infestation? If you see one fly, it is not an infestation. If there's bed bugs, it's a fail. If you see more than one live roach during the day, in more than one room, or if you see more than one live roach in a single room, or if you see a live roach in several rooms, in more than one room, then that would definitely be an infestation. If you see a mouse in a trap, I'm going to get off that page. It's just gross. If you see a mouse in a trap, if you see fresh mouse droppings, that would be something to write up. But if you've got, just a couple of old mouse droppings that could be 5 or 6 years old, we can make it a comment. But unless you see activity like, chew marks or something, you don't have proof that there's active mouse activity going on. We have, did I miss any? No, I didn't miss any questions about infestations. Plumbing's pretty common. I'm seeing a lot of water squirting out of the side of showers, sediment, and sediment is in that aerator, this part right here that screws off the end of the faucet, and so their water pressure has dropped down to where they can't even really rinse a dish or wash their hair in the showers. If the cover plate, if this little escutcheon right here on the sprayer is not secured, that ring right there is a cutting hazard, so that would be a fail item. You also want to take a look at the caulking in bathtubs and tiles that have peeled away from the side of the walls. Mold-like substance. We never call it mold, it's a mold-like substance. And there's a shower head. It's a blurry picture, but there's a shower head that's spraying out the side. Number 6 is windows. And this goes really quick on the 10 most popular here. Windows. On the outside, you want to look for rot of the wood and the sill and deteriorating paint. On the inside, you're going to be looking for cracks and breaks. A crack, if it is taped, can be a 30-day. If it is broken and there are jagged edges, they need to get that boarded up within 24 hours. And then it can be changed to a 30-day. Because then it's a security issue also and a safety issue. Number 5, heat and air. I'm getting a lot of complaints from people who are living in basements of apartment buildings where they have a single thermostat for the whole building and the people in the basement are freezing. They don't have a good consistent temperature in their unit. One of the things from October 1st to May 1st to remember, and I know it's after May 1st now, but from October 1st to May 1st, is that we require the heating system to be capable of keeping the interior temperature at 65 degrees between October 1st and May 1st. Now, if it's in Denver, you know how we go ahead and bow to local jurisdiction. If it's whichever one's tougher is the rule that we follow. Denver's residential housing regulation requires units to be kept at, or to be able to keep at least 70 degrees Fahrenheit, 3 feet off the floor when it's -5 degrees Fahrenheit outside. So they're a lot tougher if it's in the Denver city and county on that one. Just a little FYI on that one. You want to look for fins that are bent. You want to look for leaks. You want to make sure that the hot water heat has covers on them, that these fins aren't exposed, that the wires aren't exposed, and that the unit is staying warm. It's good to have your thermometer with you on those. The laser thermometers, like we all used during COVID, are a wonderful tool for that, because you'll get a call saying that, you know, it's freezing in here, and you can go in and say, you know, your thermostat says it's 70 degrees, and I am showing that this heater is blowing out 95-degree air. So I know it's heating the room. And it will sometimes appease someone who thinks they need to be warmer, that the room needs to be warmer than we require. We have air conditioning units, and the ones where you use water, the cooling systems, you're going to look for leaks on those, air conditioning, and rust. You want to make sure that if the air conditioners are in the window, I had one the other day where it wasn't the same size hole that was original. It wasn't the same size air conditioner that was original to the hole. And they had those like plastic fins that are used to fill the hole, like you would put in a window if you were enclosing it in a window temporarily for the summer. They'd put those in, and a pair of doves had set up housekeeping and had babies hatch right next to the air conditioner with just that little thin accordion plastic between the babies and all of that dove poop and the unit. So make sure that it's filled in properly. So if it's not the same size unit as the hole, they need to go ahead and they need to put in the boarding and make that hole fit that unit. Number 4, garbage disposals. When I go do move-ins, this is the biggest thing, one of the biggest things I find on a move-in. Either the protective flap right here that fits inside the garbage disposal is missing. And this is here for a reason. It's to keep things from shooting out of the garbage disposal and flying around the room. So that needs to be in place. Or the crew that came in and cleaned, they use their rags and they dump it down the sink, and all the little screws and all the little pieces of metal that they picked up get caught in that garbage disposal. And they are always, I probably at least once a week have a garbage disposal that has to be fixed before I can pass a move-in. And this is just a little background on garbage disposals and you know the way they work. And there is a reset button on the bottom of garbage disposals. If you're not getting anything at all and the switch is, or the outlet is plugged in, then you know, they can try pushing the reset button, and it helps. Number 3, water heaters. Water heaters, you want to look for the vent on gas water heaters. You want to make sure that it is flowing away from the unit going up and it doesn't dip back down, that it is connected over that that ventilation system, that the ventilation system is properly fitting and that there are no air gaps. You want to make sure that when you turn on the hot water, there's not brown water running out. And if you turn on the hot water and there's brown water at first, perhaps the unit's been empty for a while. But if you run it and it doesn't clear up, then that's a fail. Also, water heaters leak. You want to make sure that the pressure relief valve, that the drain coming off of it is piped within 6 inches of the floor, and that it's not capped, and that the vent flue, like we said, is intact and in place. And electrical issues. This is the most common question that I get in emails. First things first, the GFCIs currently are not required in bathrooms. It's not a requirement. But what I see the most is improperly wired outlets, cracked face plates, electrical switches that don't go to anything, and ungrounded outlets with the wrong kind of duplex, wrong kind of outlet in it. So this is what a grounded outlet looks like. And this is your grounded outlet. It has a space for the ground pin. If the outlet is showing not grounded, it needs to be either an ungrounded outlet that doesn't have that pin, or it needs to be a GFCI. And that's the one with the buttons. And this is just a really quick, like we have talked about this before, what GFCIs do. They will, even if they're on an ungrounded outlet, they will pick up the difference in current and they will pop, even though they don't pop for your tester if it's an ungrounded outlet. And we talked about, I just went over all this. One of the things that they can do, if you've got a whole bunch of ungrounded outlets that have grounded receptacles on them, is you can have it, they can put a GFCI at the beginning of the circuit. So the breaker box, let me see if I've got a better picture here. The breaker box, then you'd have a GFCI right here. And then the outlets, and all of those outlets would be protected by that GFCI, but they need to have a note, a little sticker on the outlet saying GFCI protected and that the equipment is not grounded. Okay, the other thing they can do is you can have the other thing that they can do to fix this is they can have a GFCI breaker on the breaker box. The GFCI breakers, sometimes you'll be in the newer builds and you'll see that there aren't any GFCIs in the kitchen. If you push the test button, it's going to pop a breaker in the breaker box. When you go to reset that breaker, one thing to know is you can't just push it back. It's not going to reset that way. You have to finish pushing it all the way off and then push it back to the on position in order to reset it properly. Everybody should have, and this is a question I've received from a lot of people during, or something I've talked to people about during the QAs. Yes, you do need a tester. You can't just use, your cell phone charger or a light to see if the outlet is working. All kinds of different testers. It's really handy if you have one that has that push button to test the GFCIs. And just some pictures of cracked plates, broken outlets. A tester that's reading ungrounded. Light switches all light switches need to operate something. And the number one thing,
Hey, Mickey,
yeah,
before we unveil number one,
yes.
we have a couple questions about outlets. I thought maybe we could answer before we have our big reveal.
Okay,
If that's okay. The first question is, what if something was broken off in a part of the outlet? You can't confirm, the tester can't go in. What do you do in that case? You don't know whether or not it's grounded because you can't get your tester in because something is broken.
It's a fail. It's a fail because there's something in the ground pin.
Excellent. Trying to get confirmation on another question. What if the outlet does not operate anything? Is that a fail?
It won't operate anything until you plug it in. It's probably what if the switch doesn't operate anything?
Probably, yeah.
And if the switch doesn't operate anything, then yes, it's a fail.
And then I had a third question I'm trying to get confirmation on, but I believe the question was, is it okay to have all three? And I'm assuming that means, is it okay to have all the different kinds of outlets that you explained in a unit? They don't all have to be a ground or GFCI. It's okay to have a mix in different rooms?
Yeah. You'll find on a lot of older buildings that the kitchen and the bathroom are grounded. There'll be GFCIs in a couple of places, like the bathroom, if they've remodeled, and then the outlets in the living room are ungrounded and they've got the two-pronged outlets.
Okay.
That is one of the, and on the next question, if we would suggest in the case of the switch not operating anything to get a blank cover on plate on that, that would be one of the answers. Yes, they can either figure out what it was supposed to operate and make sure it operates that, or the switch can't be there. So they would need to have a blank plate.
Awesome. All right, big reveal for the number one.
Ready? Number
Ready.
one. Dum, dum, dum. Smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. So they're always dead when I get there or missing. And I get a lot of questions about whether or not a carbon monoxide detector is required. So the law states that if there is a fuel-fired heater or appliance, and that would be anywhere in the building. So if they've got a boiler in the basement, then yes, or a fireplace or an attached garage, and that includes parking garages. So for apartments, then yes, there has to be a carbon monoxide detector. I've had carbon monoxide poisoning. It is not pleasant. They say it's painless, and it's not. It's really not. So I'm really I really push this one a lot with everybody. They're required within 15 feet of each bedroom. So if you've got a bunch of rooms down at one end of the house and more at the other end, there needs to be, you can put one in the hallway in between those down at the end, at the same end, but they need to be within 15 feet of the entrance to any room used for sleeping, and one on each level of the unit. So even though there's no, all the bedrooms are in the basement, but there still needs to be one on the upstairs. And like I said, anywhere in the building. So if the building has interior halls and they have a boiler, then it would need it. Those buildings that have the boiler rooms in the, down in the bottom level, but all of the entrances for everybody, the main egress for everybody is outside, then if everything else in the unit is electric, then they would not need a carbon monoxide detector. But if they have interior hallways, they would need it because that gas could get into their apartment. The other thing I have pushed on a few is people that have ground level apartments that back right at where people park right next to their windows. I've requested that even though everything in here is electric, that there really should be a carbon monoxide detector in the unit. Because if they're sleeping with their window open and somebody on a cold, decides to just sit in their car and let it run, that carbon monoxide is going to come into the unit. So you do want one on every level of the home within 15 feet of any room used for sleeping and near attached garages. Don't put them close to the fuel burning appliance. So you don't want it directly in the room with the furnace or the water heater. You don't want it in the bathroom, someplace that's excessively humid. And I just discovered I've got to move one of mine, which is going to be fun because it's hardwired, because it's underneath the blades of a ceiling fan. So that's kind of pointless because the ceiling fan just blows it away. And it's, I had to put up the odorless, colorless, tasteless. I see the question. Do we want to wait until the end for questions, Catherine, do you think?
Yeah, if you're still talking about carbon monoxide detectors, we can address this one when you're done with your part of the presentation.
So there is a dead air space in every apartment or every building, every room where a ceiling and a wall come together. The 4 inches between the corner and down the wall or the corner and to the ceiling is dead air space. The air comes up and it completely bypasses this and goes onto the ceiling. So you never want the smoke detector in this 4-inch space. Okay, and I believe the rule is it needs to be placed within 4 to 12 inches from the corner. And it should not be, and it should be within a foot of the highest point of the ceiling. There are combination units. They will say on the tester if they're a carbon monoxide detector. It will say smoke and carbon, or it will say carbon monoxide. I've seen some carbon monoxide detectors recently that look just like the old smoke detectors did. So at first I mistook them until they beeped. There's a different sound to the. If you ever notice on the combo units, you get the beep, beep, beep for the smoke, and then it's beep, 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 beep for carbon monoxide. That is standard. That is the standard tone for those. Strobe light ones, those are for people with disabilities, with vision disabilities or hearing. Hearing. And we test them all. The one thing you want to check, and the only way around testing these would be assisted living. If you're in an assisted living place and setting that off is going to call the fire department, then the fire department has recently tested those. I think they do it every 6 months. So you can ask for a copy of that paperwork. Right. That's what the question, if the detectors are third-party monitored. So you can get a copy of that testing that they did. And it's embarrassing when the fire department shows up. So working smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors save lives. And questions?
Got the question about the boiler room, if you can see that one. My understanding is that the boiler room needs a detector, but not the units that are electrically supplied and not the hallways of the same building.
And it was my understanding that there needs to be one in the hallways, and there needs to be one in the boiler room as well, and the units. That's the way I read the law. And because, you know, if you're in the hallway and there's a problem, are you going to hear it behind that fire door for the boiler room? And, you know, if you're on the second or third floor, are you going to hear it if it's going off in the boiler room? So it would need, so it would need it. They would need a carbon monoxide detector. If it's got interior, if we're talking about an apartment building that has interior hallways, then they need carbon monoxide detectors, one on every level and one in each unit. Well, one within 15 feet of any room used for sleeping, and one on every level of the unit. The next question. Yes. Yeah. If they've got an interior door, if it's a hollow door and they've got that as a front door, it needs to be replaced. 6 and 7 were, goodness. I am sorry. Oh, I've got that. Hang on just a second. We don't have to scroll through everything. Windows and plumbing. So any other questions?
And I would just like, I'm sorry, I am really affected by the smog in our city this week. Sorry about my voice. I did send out all of these presentations, and they will be on our website. So if you need to go back and review some of what Mickey has presented, you will be able to do so with those attachments. I am addressing the question about the hearing impaired strobe light. My response to that, Catherine, is that HQS does not address this as a requirement. They don't say if somebody has a hearing impairment, they must have a strobe detector. It would be a tenant preference. However, I think it would probably be in that tenant's best interest if the landlord is able to install that. And Mickey, correct me if I'm wrong, but that wouldn't be a fail
No,
necessary.
It would be a reasonable accommodation.
Correct. But if the tenant didn't ask for it or didn't want one for some reason, we wouldn't fail it for not.
No, we wouldn't. But we might put it down as a comment, as a suggestion, because I mean, the landlord knows they've got a person who's hearing impaired in there. You would think that they'd want to make sure that their tenant didn't get injured.
Correct.
So just for, you know, so I would mention it as a comment, but it's not a fail. It's not a required thing.
We have another question. A taped cracked window can't be a pass, correct?
Yes, it is not a pass.
And then what is the general rule on if something could be harmful to a tenant?
You can put it under health and safety. If they can cut themselves on it, trip over it, if it's dangerous, then it's a health and safety issue, and it needs to be addressed.
Now, would we make that determination as the inspector if the tenant doesn't necessarily suggest that it is an issue?
So, yeah, like if it's a crack in if it's a tripping hazard, if it's got more than 3/4 of an inch of rise or more than a 2-inch gap, then it needs to be addressed. I mean, they may say, oh, it's okay, I just step over it, but it's not, it's still considered a tripping hazard, and it's still an HQS thing, a rule. And I guess even if it's hard to injure yourself, it would be, I guess it would depend on the item, really, which, I mean, that's kind of a vague, is there a specific thing we're talking about? But we do consider the health and safety of the tenants when we're doing this.
I'm saying that for those situations that obviously with an HQS, there could be 1 million different things, right?
Right.
So in those cases where we don't have that clear guidance from our HQS form or coming soon, the Inspire system, best to reach out to your SPOC just to get a second opinion. And then we can dig into it a little bit on our end. And just so we can move along, because we do have a lot to talk about with Inspire. Just a couple more questions, Mickey. If the landlord is taking care of a pest or mouse infestation with traps, is that addressing the issue?
You know, it is, but if it's a repeated process, then I would assume that it needs to be addressed with an exterminator, would you think, Catherine? I mean,
Yeah.
that is addressing it.
Yeah, so if it's the first complaint.
So I think it would be if it's just noted that there is bugs and mice or whatever, then yes. But if it's an actual infestation, then it needs to be addressed by pest control, and we need receipts, I would think, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would agree with that. For an initial inspection, would you fail a unit for general cleanliness? For example, if the fridge or the toilet is not clean?
No, not unless it's really a health and safety. That is just personal opinion. Oh, on initial move-ins?
Yes.
It needs to be as they would have it when you go. They need to have that unit ready as it would be for when the tenant signs the lease. So I would assume those things would be cleaned out before they move in.
Would we fail it?
No, it would be a tenant preference, I would think. I mean, no, actually. Okay. It's not a fail on a move-in if it's dirty, but yeah, it's not. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Everyone's standards are different, I guess, when it comes to cleaning, and the landlords, might be just like me. We can overlook some things. One more question and we can move on to Lynn. If a client says that they have an infestation, but you don't see visible signs, would this be a pass with remarks and then reach out to the landlord?
Yes.
Great. All right, well, if you guys continue to have HQS inspections, please, by all means, ask them. But I do want to move on to Lynn's portion of the presentation, and Mickey will be back to talk more about Inspire. Thank you, Mickey.
Thanks.
All right, Lynn, you're up.
All right, I'm going to try to share my screen with everyone. Hopefully this will work. Whoops, where is it now? Sorry. Why is it? Can you guys see, or is it just the little square thing?
I can see your background, your desktop with some icons on it.
Why is it not? Sorry.
One of them is a SpongeBob SquarePants icon.
Yeah,
It's cute.
I can't get it to. What is working? Sorry about that, you guys. I don't know why. There we go. There we go.
All right, we can see it.
All right, so welcome everyone. I'm just going to do a quick presentation about HQS process. This is the agenda. We're just going to talk about the failed HQS steps, the 24-hour fail timeline, 30-day fail timeline, and the abatement process. So Mickey just gave us those wonderful top 10 fail items. And so kind of the question is what to do next. Once you go out and do an inspection and you have a failed item on there, what are the next steps? So the first step is when you're out doing the inspection, if you're taking a paper form, we have that HQS, failed HQS notice that you can be filling out right there and then. But you want to be listing all of the items that failed. And a big piece of this is do not offer repair solutions for these failed items. I know that that's our first thought to go, that light switch doesn't work or doesn't go to anything, remove that and put a cover on it. We don't need to be telling a landlord how to fix things. We just need to be listing what items failed in the unit. So that's just an important note, not to be telling a landlord how to fix something. And then if the owner or property manager is present, which it's really nice if they are, you can then provide them a copy of that HQS fail notice when you're there. And you also want to follow up, even if they're there and you give them that HQS fail notice, you need to follow up with a failed inspection / abatement notice. Those letters, we have templates out on our website if you choose to use those, or if you're not in Elite, but there are also letters that can be generated out of Elite for fails. And I just checked this morning, and the only thing wrong with those letters is they don't have our correct logo on them, but they still have all the information and the correct dates on that. And what's really important to make sure that we're sending those letters is it tells what the steps are, how long a landlord has to fix said repair, what happens after that it goes into abatement, and then what happens after that abatement process. So it's extremely important to be sending those letters out. Even if you saw the landlord and talked to him and they said, yeah, we're going to get this fixed, you still need to follow up with that letter. And then if you are in Elite, you need to enter that failed HQS and abatement. And if you are not in Elite, you would notify your SPOC of the failed HQS and abatement. And I'm not going to go much into today the Elite piece of this. It's just going to be timelines in the process. Work with your SPOC if you have specific questions about Elite, and we also have that Elite manual that goes over the steps in Elite, along with our process sheet on our website that details the Elite steps, but I'm not going to kind of just dig into those Elite steps. All right, so there's two types of fail items. There are 24-hour fails, and then there's 30-day. So the 24-hour failed items, the resolution date should be 1 day from the date of the inspection failed. I know that that's a tight time frame, and it seems like 24-hour fails seem to hit on a Friday afternoon. That's why it's really important, if you're at an apartment complex, you can go into the property manager's office or have an email or a phone number for that landlord for these serious 24-hour fails. And so the abatement effective date for a 24-hour fail is the first of the month following the failed inspection. So if I went out today and inspected a unit and it was 24-hour fail, they need to have it fixed by tomorrow, and the abatement's going to be placed June 1st. That landlord needs to get it fixed or we're not paying them starting June. So the timeline on that is really tight. Hopefully you don't see a lot of those 24-hour fails. And if you do, that you're able to contact the landlord or property manager immediately to get that corrected, because that is no fun to have to deal with those. And then there's 30-day. This is probably a majority of the fails that you're seeing when you go out to inspect a unit. You're seeing items that are 30 that fall under the 30-day fail. So that gives the landlord 30 days to complete those repairs. This is where the calendar, the timelines get a little bit tricky. So most of the time, the landlord's going to actually probably have more than 30 days to repair that before the abatement goes into effect. If the unit, let's say, failed today and it was a 30-day fail, they would have till June 24th to fix that fail. The abatement is then placed July 1st. And HUD regulations state that a landlord we abate for 30 days. So we never put an abatement on for, let's say, June 24th. It's always the first of the month. So in this case, we would be putting that abatement on July 1st. That landlord, then there's an extra 30 days for that landlord to make those repairs. The difference with that 30-day abatement is for every day that that landlord doesn't fix those repaired items, they're losing half. We cannot pay for those days. So every single day of those 30 days, they're potentially losing half payment. If they have that extra 30 days of abatement and still don't fix it, that's when we terminate the HAP contract. So in this case, May 24th, the unit fails. By August 1st, we need to be terminating that HAP contract. And in most of these instances, you should definitely be in contact with the landlord and the tenant. In some cases, the landlord's just not going to fix it. And the tenant and you may already be kind of aware of that, and plans need to be made for what to do after that point. I think that during COVID, we were not putting abatements on. There was a lot of leeway given by HUD, and with all of those waivers expiring, it's really kind of course correcting back to the policies and regulations of the pre-COVID time. All right, so tracking failed HQS inspections, and that abatements and terminations of HAB contracts, it's really important that we are tracking those. And so I know for a while, maybe those abatement reports in Elite were not working, and we apologize for that. But abatement reports are working, and those are reports that your SPOC should be reviewing with you or sending to you monthly now. They may not have in the past, and that's because there were some issues with those reports in our system. But starting now, that is something, if you're meeting with your SPOC monthly, weekly, once a month, I would like them to be reviewing that with you or emailing that to you and identifying, hey, it looks like this one, it's going to be an abatement here next month, or it's currently abated. What's going on? Have you talked to this landlord? So it's really important to have those conversations. We don't want to all of a sudden go, oh, there's a unit that's going into or has been abated May 1st, and now we have to terminate the HAB contract in 6-7 days. We haven't heard anything from the landlord. What's going on? So those reports are going to be really helpful, and then following up with that owner regarding the status of the failed item. So an owner can request an extension. And usually we want to see that the owner has made a good faith effort to correct the deficiencies, and maybe the reason is out of their control. it could be that they have to order a special part and they show, hey, it's been ordered, but it's not going to be here for 45 days. So there's no way this can be fixed. And that's happened, I think. I'm just going to go back to the pandemic again, but there was a lot of issues with people being able to get certain parts to make repairs. In those cases, the landlord needs to email you, document something to say, here, I've ordered this part. I need some extra time. Sometimes it's that they're having difficulty getting into the unit. Those are conversations you're going to also have with the participant to say, hey, this is needed. But we can give 30-day extensions to an owner because we do not want to be abating and then terminating a HAP contract if the owner is making a good faith effort to correct any issues. And then for conditions that are life-threatening, we cannot grant an extension. So even if they say, sorry, I can't get this part, the window's broken out, I can't do anything for 3 weeks. Well, no, they need to do something. So whether they board that up, they may not be able to get the replacement window in it, but something needs to be done. We cannot grant any extensions on that any 24-hour fail. All right, so I'm going to kind of go through the steps right now of what to do, the timelines to say a unit failed. Let's see if the landlord fixed it and when they fixed it and those timelines. So the first one you have is you go out, you fail something in the unit, and the landlord repairs those before the abatement period. So there's a couple ways you can do it. So the owner can provide work orders or receipts showing the failed items have been resolved. In these cases, there is no need. You do not need to be going back out to do an inspection. On our inspection failed HQS notice, it states that too. It says, hey, landlord, just provide us with receipts or work orders showing that this has been completed. So that's really important to remember that that's something that you can do. I know we're all busy, and to have to drive all the way back out there can be very time consuming. And if the owner cannot provide documentation, a re-inspection would need to be performed. And this could either be in person or a remote video inspection. So let's say it is the faceplate cover needs fixed. The landlord could go out, you could call him and he could show you on video, hey, this has been repaired. That's going to save everyone some time. And that's a possibility. I'm just thinking, sorry, I didn't put this. That could also possibly be the participant saying, hey, the landlord came, he fixed this, here it is. We just need some type of proof that that repair has been made. So if the failed HQS items are repaired prior to the start of the abatement period, so within those 30-ish days we've given that landlord to repair that, you would just inform your SPOC that the unit is now in past status, and if you were in Elite, you need to go and put that past HQS inspection date in there. If not, you would just let your SPOC know the unit passed, the one failed item or two failed items have been corrected, it passed on this date. And then what DOH will do is we'll cancel the abatement. So there will be no reduction in payment for that landlord. We did not put anything on hold. We did not abate anything during that period that 30 days that we were giving the landlord to make those repairs. So that's best case scenario. Well, maybe the best case scenario is it didn't fail, but this is out of these, this is the best case scenario, that the landlord goes out, corrects it within that time frame. So the next thing would be if the landlord makes those repairs, but it's after the abatement has already started. So again, you would either perform a physical reinspection, remote, or have the landlord provide those appropriate documentation. And either you enter that HQS and Elite or inform your SPOC. And then what DOH would do, we are not canceling the abatement because the abatement went into effect. We then have to end the abatement. So in our system, Division of Housing, we will go in and end that abatement, but we are only going to pay that landlord prorated HAP payment. So it's the total HAP due less the number of days the unit was still in fail status. So that could be if somebody's HAP was abated May 1st and it went out and passed today, we're only paying for those remainder days of this month. So from the 24th on, and Elite will generate that prorated portion and send that to the landlord. All right, and worst case scenario, that the items are not resolved after the abatement date ends. So if failed items are not resolved by the time the abatement period ends, the HAP contract will terminate. So we need to be moving participants out of their unit in Elite and issuing an issued under lease voucher for them to move. So as we all know, it is very difficult to find units out there to rent. And so it is imperative to be working with the landlord and the participant if any unit is in failed status. On occasion, we are going to have this happen where a landlord refuses to make any repairs and they're just saying, fine, let it terminate, the tenant can move out. And we want to kind of be aware of that earlier in this process and not have it surprise anyone, especially the tenant, to go, oh no, I need to now find a new place to live. So a big thing would be to contact the participant, provide them with a copy of their voucher, the RAFTA, hopefully within, like, usually from the time the unit fails to the HAP contract terminating, you're looking at 2+ months. And so it is working with those families and really having those conversations to see if the landlord is going to make these repairs. All right. So on occasion, we have landlords who, the repairs are completed after the abatement period ends. So in these cases, we are not allowed to just go in and say, oh, he finally made them after 2.5 months. We're just going to start up the payment again. This has to be treated like it's a brand new lease up. So a new HAP contract has to be signed, a new lease has to be signed, a full new initial inspection needs to be conducted on the whole entire unit. And so it's not as simple for a landlord to go, oh, it's going to take a couple months and then I'll fix it. And it's going to be a large process. So work with your SPOC if you have questions on that. But the landlord does really need to be aware that, hey, if this happens, we're terminating the HAP contract and it's going to be a whole new process if you make it, or if you make those repairs after the end of the abatement period. Right. And then I just put on here, real quick, some frequently asked questions. And then if there's any additional questions and things I hadn't reviewed, definitely ask. So the first one is, if there is a tenant caused fail, is the unit abated? And that is a no. So owner rents are not abated as the result of HQS failures that are the participants' responsibility. And the next question leads into that. What if the tenant doesn't remedy the tenant caused fail? You need to be following the tenant conference process. You need to be working with that. I think a common tenant caused fail is hoarding issues. And so it's working with the family to see if, I know that there's been a lot of agencies that I've worked with in the past that have really advocated and reached out to organizations that are able to maybe help their participants to go out and do some of that cleaning, or to make that unit safe, that an inspection is able to be done in the unit. Another one we get quite a bit is, what if there are fail items that are both 24-hour and 30-day fails? So in these cases, there will be 2 dates that items need to be repaired by, and then 2 abatement dates as well. They can get real confusing. But yeah, so you would be putting on abatements for multiple times. So even if the landlord corrected that 24-hour fail within that 24 hours, we could remove that abatement for the 24-hour fail, but then they would get that additional 30 days to fix any of those 30-day fails. Another one maybe that we get are annual reexaminations and HQS inspections done at the same time. And no, these are 2 separate actions, even though they may coincide at times, because you're leasing someone up. you've done a new lease up or an annual move, and you're maybe, if you're an agency or if it's a PSH that does inspections annually, that's falling around the same time. What we just want agencies to be aware of is that you're not holding up one action to complete both of those. So you're not holding up their annual because they were a no-show or had to reschedule the HQS. So even though it can be helpful to do those at the same time, just please don't be holding up one of these actions to make sure that you have both completed at the same time. And if the owner promises to make the repair in the next few days, do I have to send the HQS fail notice? I know it can be time consuming and kind of not the most fun way to spend your time is to doing these letters, but it is really important that even if you're there with the owner or property manager and they say, excuse me, they say, oh, our guy will be out here tomorrow, we'll get it done. Please just go back. When you're in the office, you can generate those letters out of Elite, or like I said, we have template letters. Just please get those letters out. People get busy and forget things. And so we need to be letting landlords know of what the repercussions are of not making these repairs, meaning they could lose out on a potential HAP, or that HAP contract could be terminated. So please make sure that you're sending those out. And I think finally, if the unit is in abatement, does the tenant need to pay their portion? Yes, they are still required to pay their portion of rent. The landlord can't be charging them late fees for our portion or expect them to be paying that full amount during the abatement period, but they do need to be paying their portion. And the letters that we have that go out to the participants do state that they are still responsible to pay their portion of rent. And I think that is it for me.
I do have a couple of questions I couldn't answer, or I would answer incorrectly if I tried. Let's just put the first one, we have an owner that has sent the order confirmation for a tub surround, but haven't received an ETA on delivery. We're only able to push the abatement by 30 days and it is not the landlord's responsibility. What are the next steps?
I think to be reaching out, if it does take 45 days for that, if they have ordered it and you have proof, we could potentially push it out another 30 days. What we don't want, if a landlord is doing something in good faith, we don't want to penalize the landlord. But again, we also don't want our participant in a unit that is deemed, not safe or unhealthy, or if they're not able to take a shower. There's a lot of gray area that is on a case-by-case basis. If it's a tub surround and they have 2 bathrooms that have showers in them, that might change my belief. But if a participant is like, oh, I can't use my shower because there's nothing in there, why couldn't he go to Home Depot? Just kidding. But yes, it's on a case-by-case basis. It is not out of the question that a landlord could get additional 30-day extensions. Other examples sometimes is let's say if there was something on the outside of the unit that was a fail, but it was the middle of winter and they needed to fix something and it was not safe during that time. There was a big winter storm. We would be giving some leeway to that owner or to that landlord. So I do think that there is a potential to give an additional 30-day on a case-by-case basis.
One more I couldn't answer. Can a landlord request an extension if they are already in abatement?
No. I mean, they've had 60 days. I mean, if they were in abatement, not at that. If the abatement has been through, I'd say no, if it's the end of the abatement period. I guess I would just be curious as to why they were asking it and why they hadn't reached out or made any contact during that time that we gave them. I think sometimes landlords all of a sudden don't get their HAP check and then go, oh, whoops, I just wasn't paying attention. Like again, I would want to know exactly why. Was there a good faith by this owner that he really was trying to get things done? Or did he just go, whoops, I forgot all about it until now? I don't think that that's a valid reason for a landlord to get an extension.
Awesome. That's all the questions. That's all the questions.
All right.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay,
Thank you.
we're ready for Inspire. I mean, I'm not ready for Inspire, but I'm ready to learn more about it.
Well, I've been learning as much as I can about what we know, which isn't a lot. But I do have some information. I am sending in the chat the link to the standards and the link to an overview screening about Inspire inspections. So what we know, can you see the screen?
Yes, and if participants cannot access the chat since I turned it off, we will send these links as well.
Yeah.
Or are they embedded in this presentation?
I think they are.
Okay.
I know they are on the presentation if they aren't embedded.
Got it.
So it could be. All right. So Inspire stands for the National Standards for Physical Inspections of Real Estate. I think I went, yep. At this point, administrative procedures and protocols have not yet been published. Inspection standards have been published, but we're told they're going to be revised again by September. And we have a lot of broad details and not a lot of facts, but we do have some. So it stands for the National Standards for Physical Inspections of Real Estate, Inspire, and it's a method of conducting and processing inspections of HUD-assisted housing developed by HUD's Real Estate Assessment Center, REAC. It is going to replace the HQS inspections and the REAC inspections. So why did they do it? Well, HQS was developed in the 1970s and it has not changed since it began, not much. It's not aligned well with the state of the housing industry. They realized that there was a need for more emphasis on health and safety. And they concluded that the existing housing standards needed to focus more on habitability and the residential use of the structure, and most especially the health and safety of the residents. HUD has worked to implement this Inspire program, and there's been some testing going on. And I know that some of the agencies, and it'd be great to hear from you guys in the Q&A session, were part of that trial that was done. But they've been revising the regulations by updating the standards and procedures and methodology. Inspire aims to improve confidence in HUD's ability to keep properties in compliance by accurately assessing the condition of a unit, implementing streamlined inspection process, and prioritizing the health and safety of the residents. So what are the benefits? Well, to all of us, it's a unified assessment and we get objective results. For the inspector, it's consistent protocols and a streamlined process. The owner gets uniform inspections and access to information, and the participant gets higher quality units and increased transparency. What we actually know is they'll use a 3-3-3 system. There are 3 inspectable areas, 3 inspection types, and 3 deficiency categories. The inspectable areas are going to be outside, inside, and the units. When they're talking about outside, they mean building site, parking area, playground, things like that. Inside is common areas, gyms, stairwells, elevators, hallways. Units would be the actual residence. So the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom, where the tenant resides. Those are the 3 inspectable areas. The 3 types of inspections are self, critical to quality, and critical to quality plus. With the self inspection, the property owners or management does that yearly. The critical to quality, the CTQ, we would do that, the contract, the PHAs, and we focus on critical items for housing, focus of HCV protocol. And then the other ones are federal inspectors, the HUD inspectors. But the good news is we only have to worry about the CTQ. The rest of it is for REAC. So we will focus on crucial items for housing quality, and we'll focus on the HCV protocol. And then the deficiency categories, health and safety, function and operability, and the condition and appearance. So they will go over, and I'm breezing through this to save time. And if you want to know more, we'll have that link for you to go into HUD. But the health and safety has 2 categories. Is it life-threatening or non-life-threatening? And then function and operability and condition and appearance. These 2 things do not necessarily fail the item. They are observations. They don't always result in a fail. It's when they escalate that they become a health and safety deficiency, that they are, and they need to be repaired in order to pass inspection. They become that health and safety, and they are either categorized as non-life-threatening or life-threatening. So we have the 333 system, the inspectable areas, inspection types, and deficiency categories. This is what it's all going to be based on. It is going to be so much easier. It is going to be clearer for the inspector, I think. I really think it's going to be, there's going to be a lot fewer questions for everybody. The current standards, which they say is going to change again before September, are online, and that's the link that we're giving you. And this is what the page looks like. It's very clear, very easy to use. You find a deficiency, and you've got your list of standards over here. This is the version of standards and when it was last updated. And this area applies to, is it in the unit, inside the building, or outside? And all of your deficiencies are all listed on the left-hand side. So if you clicked on one of them, this page would appear. And on this page, you've got the title of the deficiency, which is infestation. And the presence of it's got a definition, the presence of a potentially disease-carrying animal or insects. And it gives you common components, in this case, insects, and it lists a lot of bugs and mammals. Places that you would look for these things in the unit, inside or outside, places in the unit to look for them. And then the bottom half of the page gives you the level of deficiency. So is it evidence of cockroaches, or is it an infestation? Is it evidence of bed bugs or mice or rats or other pests, and where you would look for them? So say we wanted to do cockroaches, extensive cockroach infestation in the unit. You'd go to deficiency number 2, and this page gives you everything you would want to know. It gives you the criteria, it gives you the determination, and HCV correction time would be 30 days, and the process. It tells you what to look for, and exactly where to look for it, and it even tells you what tools you can use to, or you should use to look for those things. So I think it's going to be very helpful, and it's going to take away a lot of the guesswork and the personal opinions that we see in a lot of inspections. We do have, every inspector goes in, and it's hard to go into a home that is filthy and not put your personal look on life, on their living habits. And this makes you more, it makes everything a lot more, everybody's going to be doing the same inspection, and we're all going to be following the same rules. And it's going to tell us exactly, what the deficiency is and what to look for. And I think it'll be a lot easier on everybody. So this is, it's easy to look up. The standards are clear. Like I said, it looks like they're going to be changing them again here soon. So what we do know is the process will be more streamlined, and it's going to take out a lot of the guesswork, and that landlords are going to appreciate this. There's going to be less personal interpretation. And the other thing I want everybody to be aware of is your HQS inspector certification. If it expires between now and when this starts, you still need to keep it current. What we don't know, we know that the rule sets October 1st as the date we'll have to start using this. What we don't know is what the standards are the final standards are going to look like. The administrative plans, procedures, and protocols haven't been published. And we have broad details and few facts, a lot of rumors, but not all the facts are in yet. We will be sending out updates as we receive them and sharing a plan for training and implementing once we have the facts. And that's the big thing. Once we have the facts, we will let you know. If you want to see that basic overview, there is a training online that HUD offers. It gives you a basic foundation of the model and how it works with HCV, and it's self-paced, so you can do it, an hour here, an hour there. It was very informative. So if you're interested, the training link is also in the slides. And we'll take questions.
I've answered the questions to the best of my ability, having no specific guidance yet from HUD. So Leslie is mentioning that HUD's been releasing Inspire, like little 2-minute videos here and there to get us ready. So if you're not signed up for the HUD Exchange, on the HUD Exchange, you can sign up for any information about Inspire, for example, or about FUP, Family Unification Program, for example. You can sign up for different topics that you're interested in, and you will get a lot of emails from HUD. I think some things that we're hearing about Inspire and Mickey, maybe you mentioned it and I was busy typing away, so I apologize if this is a repeat, is that it will be all digital. We will not have a paper form. It will be done through your smartphone or an iPad or some sort of digital device that automatically sends it to the cloud or wherever it goes, so that there isn't room for question on, oh, did I mark that as a pass or fail? Did you mention that?
No, I did not.
Okay. And again,
yeah,
we don't have
yeah.
confirmation about that. That's just what we're hearing.
Yeah. Also, one of the things they want you using the smartphones and pads, you know, like your tablets. They mentioned in that training that if it's a 24-hour health and safety, you'll need to take a picture of the deficiency, a clear picture of the deficiency, and it'll need to be time and date stamped so that you can show the landlord exactly what you're talking about. There's all kinds of extras, like Catherine said, we don't know everything yet, but they're alluding to these things. So we'll let you know as soon as we know.
Mickey, one of the questions or comments was that the link, I believe the link you provided on about the training was not working. Is that, I'm not sure if that was the link you're referring to. We have a question in the Q&A. It just says, I just tried the link and it's not coming up. I did share the 2 links you shared in the chat. So perhaps that might be the link.
Yeah, maybe. So let me see really quick,
because the Inspire online training, when I click that link and what I shared in the chat with everybody, it seems to work. I'll share it again here, just if that's what you're asking about. Hopefully that works. Yeah, there's a lot of maybes. There's been a lot of information shared over the past year or so. I guess I think a lot of voucher providers might have been under the false impression that this would not impact us, or it might be something that gets pushed back a little bit. So, you know, again, I apologize that we haven't had a lot of information to share prior to today, but honestly, there isn't a lot of information yet because we don't have our protocols. We do know that our certifications for our partners will look a little different. You know, will the technology be included since it's now required that we use technology? That seems like it could be a financial impact for a lot of PHAs. Will our software, our software has to update to accommodate this new requirement, but are we going to have to pay the software vendors for this new and improved module? That doesn't seem fair, for lack of a better term. So I think there's a lot of questions still outstanding. So we do have a couple more questions, Mickey. So this one says, will agencies be able to share the inspection results through Inspire? Meaning if we have multiple inspections with various agencies like CHAPA and Division of Housing within the same month, could we use one pass inspection result for an inspection that happened in the same time frame? I'm guessing that means if there's like a tax credit unit that a voucher holder lives in, would one inspection completed by the tax credit, required by the tax credit property count for the voucher holder inspection?
You know, we were discussing that. So you're talking about like some of the what is it, the public housing and the REAC inspections are going to be using the same inspection now? Is that what you're referring to?
Oh, meaning, so sometimes we have a tax credit property, say
Right.
like Main Street Apartments, they receive tax credits. So they have inspections, the REAC inspection right now that they have to do on their units. But for example, if we have Bob Tennant who lives in one of those units using their voucher, and the tax credit property already completed that Inspire inspection for their tax credit purposes, does the voucher agency now have to also complete that inspection, or does that one inspection count since Bob Tennant just happens to be a voucher holder living in that tax credit? Like, is it so global? And I might be taking liberties with this question, but is it such a global process that it goes into the cloud, like I mentioned, or a database that we go, okay, good, I'm on the right path. That we go, this unit's already been inspected, so we're good for another year. Is there anything, we may not know that, but I'm curious if you've read anything about that.
We don't know that right at the moment, but wouldn't that be really nice?
Feels
That
like
would
if,
save us so much time, wouldn't it?
yeah, if they're promoting the efficiency of it, that sure would be great, because I know we have a lot of voucher holders in tax credit. Okay, Terry has a question. Let me see if I can, let me see how I fix that, Terry. I'm going to allow you to talk, Terry, if you want to ask your question. Well, Terry, you're open to ask your question if you would like. Oh, there you are.
Hi, I'm sorry, that was an error. Thank you, though.
Look, we tested technology and it worked.
We did. Oh my goodness, thanks.
All right, thank you. Okay, any other questions? We really like the idea of the same inspection for one program to be universal for all programs, but we'll find out. Now, I do know, and again, sorry, Mickey, I was typing and trying to listen at the same time, but one thing I did hear in a webinar was that we don't have guidance, but we will have it before July 1st. So that could be any day, right? But between now and July 1st. And for the public housing and the tax credit properties, Inspire goes into effect July 1st. So I would hope that we get that guidance quick, because it's going to be real impactful if, you know, to other programs if it doesn't come out quickly. Yeah, so Inspire, universal for all HUD programs. It makes sense. I love the idea. I wish I had more time. October will be here before we know it, and that's when we know the final rule says that the Housing Choice Voucher Program will be required to start using it. A question did come in through the Q&A if people didn't see, will DOH require Inspire for all of our voucher programs, not just HCV? My initial thought is yes, because our software will be updated to remove HQS and only have Inspire. And in that case, we would want to be, we'd want to follow the guidelines for all programs. So our state funded housing voucher programs will likely also need to follow the Inspire protocol. I can't imagine we would have two separate protocols. That would be kind of chaotic. Okay, well, I think that is all for the questions. Again, if you guys come up with questions later, we can try and answer them, but please know we're learning. Mickey's, attending these trainings. You guys have access to the link for doing those online little piecemeal trainings. There are agencies like Nan McKay who are offering certifications and trainings that we're looking into. We're not going to require that of you all, because those are quite costly. But like we do with HQS, Mickey becomes certified through Nan McKay, and then Mickey creates our certification program that we are then able to certify all of our DOH partners to do this inspection on behalf of DOH only. It does not mean you would be certified to do it for other programs. So we're looking into what that will look like. And just a quick reminder, our next webinar is scheduled for Wednesday, June 21st, topic to be determined. Maybe we'll know more about Inspire and we can do something about that then. But again, we're just hurrying up and waiting like everyone else. Okay. With that, I will end this webinar, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week and a restful Memorial Day weekend. Thank you, Lynn and Mickey. This is a great webinar. Bye all.